Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV, Season 1, Episode 14, Kolchak, the Night Stalker. I'm joined here by RDV and Professor Pixel, a.k.a. the Night Talker. So, gentlemen, let me start off by saying that as we're reviewing this wonderful, groundbreaking TV show from the mid-'70s, we understand a few things about Kolchak that have become commonplace. That is, the effects are not special. Sometimes they're pretty bad. We know that sometimes the episodes can feel a little bit rushed or edited choppily. Whatever, the sheer performance of Darren McGavin in this lead role and a lot of the situations he's being placed in, whether or not the execution is great, a lot of the stuff we just mentioned makes up for it. So, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of great episodes lately. They've been kind of hit or miss. Some were decent, some weren't too good. One of the worst episodes to me was a few episodes ago. But then, just then, as we round third base going to the home stretch of the final season here and only season of Kolchak, we get episode 14, the Trevi Collection, and where we see a guy fall perhaps by a supernatural force which leads to witches and a fashionista. And did my eyes not deceive me as I was watching this with killer mannequins at the end? This is a tremendous Kolchak episode. It is one of the best episodes ever of Kolchak. It's absolutely divine. It's got everything that you could want. It's got a cult. It's got burning fires. It's got killer mannequins. It's got Kolchak being cute. It's got the attractive host. It's got the guy from The Love Boat on there, Bernie Koppel, which I think was the doctor. Not that that matters to anybody listening to it, but you would know who he is as a guest star. But ultimately, a phenomenal episode. This renewed my faith in the show. RDV, I can tell you want to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, the mannequins. Creepy.
Yes.
And this probably isn't the first time I've seen mannequins. Later in years, or 2006, they later relaunched the new Doctor Who series, and they had killer mannequins in that too. So it's like I'm just saying how those two kind of like they're kind of similar. The mannequins came alive, and that is creepy in this. If you're a kid watching this show, because there really is no special effects, you just the mannequins just start moving.
Yeah,
you don't see anything, so it's all prop. There was no CG, so it's like. That makes it even scarier. Like your mom's like, "Let's go shopping." There's mannequins there. I ain't going.
Well, as we transition over to Pixel, let me throw this in there because Pixel obviously, he knows personally that one YouTube sensation I've been hearing about lately on Twitter, Puppetine or something like that. I'm not too familiar with what he is, but he's a talking puppet that reviews things. Well, I should say the Night Talker that's his nom de plume tonight. I just got to say that, going from the 60s and the 70s as we, socially things were changing a lot. We've briefly touched on it on American television, but you had Valley of the Dolls about men who seemed to live this idealistic lifestyle, and their wives basically got turned into robots at the country club. And that's actually not Valley of the Dolls. That's this other horror movie, which is fantastic, but it's just that middle class, upper middle class sort of fantasy / horror type thing. And so we've seen a little bit like even in Westworld, Future World, those types of movies in the 70s where we see mannequins, and it's just disgusting and it's creepy. And Night Talker, you're familiar with Puppetine from what I understand too. What's your take on this episode?
It was really solid. It's funny that RDV brought up Doctor Who because it also reminded me of a creature from it called the Weeping Angels. Basically, when you don't look at them, they can move. But when you look at them, they're statues, they're stone. It was almost like that. Obviously, we saw them move, but the people in there, other than Kolchak, never really saw it until it was too late. The execution of this one is great. You have the phenomenal Laura Parker playing her natural-born role as a witch. And she just does a fantastic job. I can't think of a bad thing to say about this episode.
No, I mean, the movie I was thinking was a Stepford Wives that came out also this year that the show was on, so probably a little bit after that. But there was this thing about, after World War II, this boom that we had in the United States. But once we got into the early 70s with price controls getting off the gold standard, the 70s went to the toilet. There's issues with oil, allegedly an energy crisis. Not really, but that's how it's perceived and taught today. But it just makes the women's place of where it should be at home or should it be in the corporate world. interesting. The feminism obviously had been growing at this time, so television was definitely trying to be progressive, but in a very subtle fashion. And one of the ways that they could do that successfully was to show them in positions of power. And what way could you show a woman in power? Not just sexually, but on equal footing with a man, or even superior, and that is by being a witch. That also solves the problem that we've talked about, old horror movies and horror tropes being modernized at this time on television, because now all of a sudden we have, in addition to movies, we have television. How can we take old content people are familiar with, or old ideas, put them in mainstream America and make them be successful? And we talked about Rosemary's Babies was the crown jewel of that in the late 60s. This episode, even though it's dated and the set pieces are okay, there's still something about the way you put together a strong performance by not just Darren McGavin, but like to your point, the witch in here and just what they do with it. And it just works, and it's great television. And, you know, there's an old expression about how a director's medium is film. It's not for an actor. An actor is for the stage, but television is for a good writer. And one of the things Kolchak has done really well is, maybe if the show didn't look too good or was edited or whatever, the writing was somewhat decent, and because of Darren McGavin, was able to convince you that stuff was going on. And we've had some ludicrous things if we think about it, right? We had the Love Boat Cruise with a werewolf on it, right? I mean, it's just kind of silly. But here, he's just really great, and he has his little battle at the end, like we see him have with the witch, and we can talk about that as we get to it. But let's just go through some of the scenes that really popped out to us and why we liked them. RDV, go ahead.
Like I said, I love all the scenes of Madeline Perkins.
Yes.
Especially where the scene where he goes after he's talking to her. She's a beautiful actress, and she's very talented as it is. But I love probably my favorite scene is when Kolchak wants to go basically observes a witch, you know, the ritual stuff, because you want to get information on there. And the coven, and then how they basically got like creepy, tear their hoods off. They're all laughing at him at the end. I'm like, what the heck is this? It's like,
no, that
was evil.
Yeah, because they run him out of there basically, with their warning that a black witch is after him. Then they take off their hoods and they're all laughing, and you see Laura Parker there.
Yeah.
And Kolchak at that point doesn't know that she's the witch, and now we know.
Well, plus the others, wasn't there? I believe there's another scene where he was asking information, like, you know, he's like, "Hey, first timer, yeah, first time here." Just a little chit chat scenes he does. Like he's standing in the background of one of the seminars and all things, and then the old guy's talking to him. He's like, you know, he starts asking the old guy questions, like, you know, just stupid little things like that. Because it's obviously that he's not from there, and he's trying to blend in, but he sucks at blending in. So he's always interrupting people when they're trying to talk.
Yeah, and the lady, I think, that plays the witch in here, I think she played the witch on, I thought, the show that you really like there, Night Talker, that would be Dark Shadows.
Yep,
So she brings a lot of experience of playing in that kind of role. Now, Dark Shadows, I think, partly in, you know, perhaps to the wildly successful, one of the best TV shows of all time, Twin Peaks, which we also happen to be reviewing here on the Xtreme Movie Show. Check that out. We're currently middle of season 2. They relaunched Dark Shadows in like 90, 91, 92-ish, around that time frame. And that's when you had heard Angelique, and you had these luscious sets and everything, and it was just really kind of campy, and it was just a really nice updated version of throwing back, because it had the same essence in it that the original Dark Shadows had, which, let's be honest, there's lots of episodes of Dark Shadows, the original show, but Dan Curtis had a very good way of having this template for what would work. And then, of course, he had the Dracula version with the guy from Tango and Cash, who's now dead. Cash, Tango, and Cash, that gentleman, very, very good actor. His name escapes me off the top of my head. But, yeah, everything works in this episode in RDV. You know, you were pointing out there, too, how, you know, we're used to seeing Kolchak basically being in a scene where he's uncomfortable and can't fit in, but he tries to. Those are always kind of neat.
Yeah.
But he is sharp. He's able to kind of assess the situation quickly. It seems like he knows human nature a little bit because he's able to basically ask somebody a question. And usually when you're asking questions, you're in charge. But he lets people talk, and that's how he gets his information. And dang it, that's one of the great things that is lost today when it comes to journalists, media, and television is you ask somebody a question, you sit down and you shut up too. So let me ask both you guys this too, because this was a setting I was not expecting, but I'm glad we got it. In general, despite everything we've said so far, did you really think that you could have an episode of Kolchak that dealt with fashion? I mean, come on.
Yeah. This is also the third episode of that was directed by Don Weiss. The one we did before this was Firewall. Remember that one? And then his next one he's going to do for the series is going to be called Demon Lace, which is going to come up soon. Yeah, I said I love. There's still a little camp in this, like when he goes to confront her, Lara Parker, aka Madeline Perkins. He goes to confront her there, and she's like, "You're an idiot. You're a foolish old man." It's like, because he mistakes Madame Travis for being the witch.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You idiots, you bumbling buffoon! I'm not the witch. Madeline is." And he's like, "Oh crap." And he's using
an interesting point.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quickly. I love Pixel. I love how when he's going after Madeline, he's trying to use the thing. He's like, "Thing ain't working. He's like, I paid what, $5 for this."
Yes. I just love how they're able to end this one because it's so different from how it normally ends. And I think we're at that point where it's okay to talk about the fallout.
Well, before we get to ending, the only last thing I wanted to bring up is one of the things I definitely appreciate about this episode is, when we talk about a show that maybe doesn't have a big budget, that doesn't mean it still can't be a good episode or look professional. And one of the things about a lot of 70s television, especially when there's a lot more close-up shots of individuals and, the cutting between each person, then it's a one-shot thing where you have one person in the frame. I love it when you have older people, different mixes of races, colors, creeds, but also status. So when she's at the older lady's house there too, to your point, RDV, kind of talking with her about it, she's dressed like a professional old woman. She's got the nice pearls on. There's a fire going on. It's just a nice, really warm, charming, older, rich-looking place without being, grotesque or shoved in your face. And it has a certain sense of style to it. And I think sometimes that's lacking. A lot of times people do the gratuitous displays of wealth rather than just, no, we dress in suits because that's our business, not flashy suits that say, hey, look at me, I'm rolling in big dough or something. And Kolchak, again, he has that same outfit every single time. So Kolchak's a constant no matter who he meets too. But there's definitely, I think, in some of these episodes, whether it's intentional or not, this certain level of status that gets sort of lightly talked about here too, because let's face it, these aren't witches that are poor or living under the bridge like trolls or anything like that. It's high society kind of stuff too, and they work together in a coven. But yeah, the ending, it was pretty good too. So Night Talker, you wanted to mention that? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm really satisfied with the ending because not only does Kolchak get to defeat the monster of this week, even though which isn't technically a monster, as say, he's able to defeat her in a way that she still survives. Takes away her magic, and he gets to save the older lady who is running the fashion company. And it's very rare that we get an episode of Kolchak where he doesn't have to kill one or the other. Or, well, he doesn't kill the other, but the other dies. It's very rare that he's able to successfully save somebody and kill and not kill the monster.
Yeah, he didn't kill her. So by tricking her and beats her at her own game, she ends up being committed to the Illinois State Hospital for the insane without any hope of recovery.
Criminally insane.
Indeed.
Well, we can't say she's a criminal.
But
insane.
She lost her beauty. Such a shame. Such a shame.
She turned into what is that girl from the Willy Wonka? The one that became a blueberry? Because that's what she looked like at the end.
Veruca Salt? Is that who it is?
I have
Yeah.
no idea.
She did. You're right. She's got the blueberry face on too. Veronica Salt. I want it, Daddy, and I want it now. Yeah.
Their hair. Oh, do you see her hair? How it was like, wow, that is bad.
Here's the key scene. She's got almost this corduroy looking ensemble going on in this long blue sweater. So it's very form fitting, very nice without being trashy. And yeah, she turns all purplish and everything. But let's not forget that Kolchak's trying to drown her. And he's like, drown, you witch, drown.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, he's really trying to drown her on public TV. This is kind of cool back, 45 years ago. And she goes after him with a really long pair of scissors and everything too. But yeah, really great episode. A lot of fun. We know that the whole season with Kolchak, it's been a long time since I've seen these episodes, since I was a child. So it's been about 30, 40 years for me. We're obviously the three of us different ages and stuff. Night Talker, I believe this is a first watch for you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, it's unusual that we go back and look at some older stuff and get talk about it, but such an influential show. When you have a really good episode like this, it's the perfect template. If you only pick out 2 or 3 episodes of Kolchak other than the movies, to say, hey, here's what makes good television in the format for it. I definitely, as of right now, 14 episodes in, would pick this one. RDV, final thoughts?
Final thoughts, man? Never cross a witch. Unless you want to drown her.
Night Talker, your final thoughts?
It's just a solid episode of television, and you get to see Laura Parker as a witch again. There's nothing better.
Yeah,
Fashion
it's good
kills.
stuff. Yeah. Remember, it's always Institute for the Criminally Insane. It's never Institute for the Insane.
I mean, this is killer fashion, isn't it?
High society. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Xtreme TV, Season 1, Episode 14 of Kolchak, the Night Stalker from ABC. Go check it out. Wonderful episode. Let us know what you think below. As always, guys, thanks for listening. Have a good night and stay extreme.